the Civil War all the time. I just could be, when I came into my middle age, and that's what I think American males do. Maybe we just start reading about the Civil War. And maybe American females too, but I became interested in it. So I wrote this song that had a Civil War base. And then that song became 10 songs. And I started seeing it as, well, I have this CD, and I record, I've got other CDs. And I thought, this is going to be, I'll do them in chronological order. And each one will tell this little story from an individual point of view. And then I finished the CD and had some great collaborative, some friends play on it. I've got it for sale today, so it's a discounted price today, $10. It's out front. Mary's, I think she's sitting next to it now. But so it became a CD. And then I decided, well, I'm going to make an educational website to go with the CD. So I developed that, and I'm working with schools now with this. And so you can go to the CD website, you can look at the lyrics, you can hear the songs, and then you can read essays and use it as a jump site. So that was fun. I had more fun with that than I did writing the songs. It was really interesting to work on that. Then I wanted to perform it, and I came up with this evening. And the evening includes visuals. I've got about 80 slides right now, photographs and maps of the war, and then speaking points. And I decided, I love the community. The community's been fantastic to me, and I love the Barns. And so I called Howard and Laura and said, would you all like to partner? I'm going to do a premiere performance. I'm going to make mistakes. It's going to be a great night. And we did it the other night, and it was full house. And I'm booking the show now. I was really trying to see what was going to work. And I'll be doing the show again at Harpers Ferry at the church next Wednesday night for their Civil War Roundtable. Museum in Shenandoah in the fall. Big theater in Hampton, Virginia, American Theater. So it's taken a new life, and it's an interesting project, so I'm having fun with it. Takes 2 hours. I'm not going to do the show tonight. Drinks are soon, all right? But it's got 10 songs, and I think the context, the reason I made it into a performance is because they're stories that I think need a little bit of information behind them. So I've written a few notes, so I'm going to glance at them, and to keep it shorter, usually I follow my slides to talk, so I'm not going to do that tonight. The first song is called The Fall of the Rice Kingdom. And a few years ago, we were down in South Carolina, Gingerman, South Carolina, Beaufort. We just finished a show. We had a few days, and we went kayaking in the Ace Basin, in Combahee River specifically. And I did not know that America was one of the top producers of rice since colonial times, up until the beginning of the Civil War. And so when we kayaked down to Combahee River, we were going through all these marshlands, and I'd done a little reading, and I realized that we were floating over the remains of 1,000 miles of dikes and submerged canals, walls, waterworks that flooded and then released the waters to plant rice. It was the major crop. At that point, we always think of South as King Cotton, but along the coastal area, rice was cultivated on 100,000 acres, and it was the richest. Some of the richest families in America were around Charleston to Jacksonville. Well, at the beginning of the war, November 7th, 1861, months after the secession had begun, the United States Navy sent 47 warships and cargo ships down to Port Royal Sound, which was at that point, which was one of the most, considered one of the finest deep water ports on the Atlantic seaboard. Couldn't take Charleston, couldn't take Savannah, so they sent it to here. They'd just previously taken Hatteras Inlet. So he goes down with the flotilla, and it was under Admiral Samuel DuPont. He's got 12,000 soldiers, 600 Marines, and 47 warships. Well, Port Royal Sound sits between Hilton Head and St. Helena's Island, and it had 2 forts. On the south was Fort Walker on Hilton Head, and on the north was Fort Beauregard, and that's what guarded the Sound. So it goes down with 47 ships, and on November 7th, brings the ships into the Sound, pulls close to Fort Walker and does a circular motion, firing on Fort Walker, the Confederate Fort Walker, and very quickly takes that fort. Then Fort Beauregard surrenders, and the American Navy takes over Port Royal Sound, which includes all the rice plantations up and down the Edisto River, Ashepoo River, and Combahee. Takes thousands of acres and frees immediately about 8,000 slaves. And it was never returned. never went back to Confederate control. So that really was the initial reconquest of the South. This song is called The Fall of the Rice Kingdom. And what happened was when the American military then 2 days later went into Beaufort, South Carolina, it was empty, except for slaves had taken over, freed slaves. And so the American government then immediately has to figure out, what do we do? What do we do with all these people? And what do we do with all this land? And sets up the Freedmen's Bureau. And so that became the Port Royal experiment. It's really the first experiment. Well, this first song, the thing about the CD, all 10 songs are from Confederate viewpoints. It just happened that when I was writing the songs, that's the voices that came easiest. I attempted to write in different viewpoints. And every time I sat down and studied the history, these voices kept coming. And I think it's just the irony. It's that feeling of their own hopes that I may disagree with, but they had them and they felt. So this is the first song. It's by November. It's written right after the fall. It's called The Fall of the Rice Kingdom. Gunships up around and circle around again. We hid beneath the ramparts covering our heads. The cannonballs dropped like hail upon the walls. I closed my eyes and said my prayers and waited for the call. Bombs down from Hampton Roads with 50 ships or more, pushed us from the islands and put the troops ashore. All along the Congo, hear the white folks on the run. It's the end of all that we once knew down in the Rice Kingdom. The sands of Hilton Head as fast as we could run. The white flag in the distance was raised on Beauregard. It's been a bad beginning, but I swear we will return. Drive the Yankees off the coast into the sea again. March down from Hampton Roads with 50 ships or more, push us from the islands and put the troops ashore. All along the Congo, hear the white folks on the run. It's the end of all that we once knew down in the Rice Kingdom. Slaves are sleeping on their master's saddle sheets. Cavalries are gathering to chase them from the streets. It's as if the blood-red devil had come up to lead the dance. Drive the Yankees off the coast into the sea again. March down from Hampton Roads with 50 ships or more, push us from the islands and put the troops ashore. All along the Congo, hear the white folks on the run. It's the end of all that we once knew down in the Rice Kingdom. It's the end of all that we once knew down in the Rice Kingdom. This next song is called Tiger in the Valley. And this one takes place place in the area. It's one of the most colorful units on either side of the war was the Louisiana Tigers. And they were accompanied of these rough and ready laborers from the docks of New Orleans. And many of them were Irish and German immigrants, which has a real huge place in the history of labor relationships, actually sprang from some of these men who had been in the Louisiana Tigers. They were recruited off the docks by local leaders soon before Louisiana's secession. And the brigade was filled with men who had actually been veterans of mercenary wars called the Filibuster Wars. And this was an American named William Walker and another named Chaplain Robert Wheat, who took volunteer mercenaries down to Nicaragua to basically, let's take your country because we can. They attempted in Mexico in the 50s, and they attempted. So these were men who had fought before, and they were rough. They were rough. Well, in the spring of 1862, Stonewall Jackson's Army of the Valley was going up and down the valley, basically drawing Union troops away from Richmond, and also attempting to clear the valley. And in May 23rd, the Louisiana Tigers and the 1st Maryland Infantry routed the Union forces in Front Royal. They went through Front Royal, and then they headed up to Winchester. From Winchester, then Union forces came back down, and they chased Jackson down the valley on two sides of the Massanutten Mountain. And he ended up rushing down before him. This is where they get the name of his foot cavalry, because they walked hundreds of miles over this spring. And they beat the Union forces in 2 battles and pushed them out of the Shenandoah Valley temporarily. Well, in this song, the narrator of the song is what's called a screwman. And the screwman was a guy whose job it was to take cotton bales and with a huge press, screw them down small enough to go in cargo ships to then ship to England. And it was so dangerous that the cotton merchants didn't want to use slaves. They basically said, why use a $700 slave when you can buy an Irishman for $1? Right? So his narrative actually points up some of the class struggles that were already in place all over the United States, but particularly in the South. He's been in Nicaragua, so he's fought before, and it's early in the war. And so we know early in the war, we thought it was going to be a short war. It turned out it was just a very long, terrible war. And I'll end with this one. I was going to do 3, but I think two's plenty. This is a local one. They came through this again. Coming up the valley, up from New Orleans, I'll be home by Christmas time. Don't you worry about me. No, don't you worry about me. Water for the horses, I'll drink my sassafras tea. Chase the Federals back up north where they ought to be, baby, now where they ought to be. Been down to Granada with William Walker's boys, smelled a little powder, and we made a lot of went on back to Baton Rouge to work down in the hole. Broke my arm a year ago, and so they let me go. Yes, so they let me go. Now we're pushing up the valley, we've got 'em on the run. Knocked 'em back from sea to Greenville and out of the front row, yeah. Yes, out of the front row, yeah. Now they're gathering up in Winchester, but I don't give a damn. I've seen them fight, and now I know I'll soon be home again. Yes, I'll soon be home.